Hey guys, what's going on? Eric Huber here, product specialist with TOA Electronics, and welcome to another podcast from Sound Supply. We have our man Andy in the house again. Andy, what's up, dude?
What's going on, baby? Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy spring. Happy May.
Indeed.
And for all you mothers out there, happy Mother's Day, which was yesterday. Can't forget them, obviously. All right, guys. Integrators, this one is for you. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the ZM-104A, and we kind of called it the hidden unit that nobody really talks about, but is very critical to troubleshooting certain things when you're on the site. When you're on the site dealing with our equipment, our audio equipment, like our amplifiers and speakers. So we're going to give you guys a scenario, and then Andy's going to walk through a couple steps on how to troubleshoot that system when you're on site with the ZM-104A. So Andy, I guess I'm the customer. I walk on site and I get there, the amp's in protect mode, right? So you got the ZM-104A in hand, you're talking to me, you don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. What's the first thing you do?
All right. So you got the magic gem. You got the ZM-104. So the first thing we're going to do is let's see if the amp, let's see what's going on. Why did this amp shut off? Why is it in protect mode, right? So one of the first things to check would be, of course, is it overheating? Is the amp really hot? Which is usually a good indicator of something being overloaded. In other words, the amp's drawing more than it's allowed to push out. So
right.
First thing we do is we get on site. Amp's a little bit warm. You can toast an egg on it. All right. So let's disconnect the speaker leads from it. So with the ZM-104, what you're doing is essentially checking to make sure that if this is a 120 watt amp, they haven't wired it to the point that it's under resistance, which means it's trying to put out more than 120 watt amps, more than 120 watts, which is usually why the amp will shut down or overheat or go into protect mode. Disconnect your speaker leads. You set your ZM-104 to the appropriate rating, which is going to be in the 40 to 100 zone. And then you just do an ohm test. So what happens is you clip your terminals, the positive lead to the red terminal, the negative lead to the black terminal. And when you tap the button to do an ohm reading, it'll come back and it'll tell you what the current ohm load is on that line. All right. So then this is where you come back and you do your calculations. Now you use Ohm's law real quick. You take your energy, which is 4,900, 70 squared. And then you take that minus divided by whatever resistance you got. Now you see if you're pulling more than the amp can pull or not. So really, why this is such an appropriate tool for what we do, because you can't use a multimeter. A multimeter is going to give you dead resistance. You need to test active resistance, impedance. So therefore, what happens is you're testing what the transformer in the back of the speaker is actually doing. If it's damaged, if it's open, if it's right, something's going on. Sometimes they go bad and they'll overload the amp. So in short, basically what it's doing is testing everything and make sure that your lines are good, you don't have an open in your lines, and that you have the correct wattage, that you're pulling the correct load out of the amp, that you're not overdrawing from the amp.
And what is this allowing you to not do? Or like this is obviously a time saver, right? So you're saving a ton of time. Yeah. So, how many times, does a technician have to get up on a ladder and check 190 speakers?
See, okay. So this is why this is such a good device, because now instead of having to go up, check every speaker, see if something got disconnected, if you haven't opened. See if maybe you have a speaker that's shot, So now instead of going up, like you said, going up step by step, checking every driver to make sure that they're connected, everything's. This does everything for basically in one shot. It does all that running around once you connect it and give it an ohm test.
Yep,
it does the footwork for you.
Right, and what happens a lot is technicians that don't have a ZM-104A, for example, or an impedance meter, is they immediately think the problem is the amplifier and not anything else. So what happens is in these larger companies, they outsource their installer integrations. They replace the amp with a brand new one. 3 months later, same issue. Boom. Yep. Brand new amp goes out. They call us. What's going on? Okay. Do you have an impedance meter? No. You need
that.
So yeah, I mean, it's a great start to. It's a great starting point, right? So you need to know, especially with systems this large, you need to know exactly where the fault is, and it doesn't pinpoint the issue, but it gets you in that direction to be able to find out what's going on. And just by knowing that there is an issue, a potential issue in the line, for example, like Andy said, if you get like this insanely low impedance rating or whatever, and your once you do the calculation and your wattage is beyond what the amp can push out, you know right away that, hey, there's an issue in that line and we need to figure out what's going on. And a lot of times a common scenario is, the ceiling guy, whatever you want to call him, goes in, makes some changes, and then all of a sudden he clips a line or something. And
exactly. Yeah, it happens all the time.
And the system will work. It'll work for a little bit, and then boom, it'll just go. And it could work for months, days, years, whatever. But eventually something's going to happen.
I'll tell you what, there's even been scenarios where guys go up there, they start working on pipes or whatever, on drop top ceilings.
Yeah.
When they put some of the parts back, it'll pinch a wire. So that wire, it's working. But as time goes on, it eats away at the insulation, and now you have a short, and that short will present a problem. That's a definite overload on the amp. The amp seeing a direct short. So it's, so yeah, it's as a matter of fact, and not for nothing, I had a customer that he was dealing with a lot of that for a while. I talked to him about the ZM-104. I think he ended up picking one up because he called me. He goes, "Man, that thing they told me to pick up.
I can't take it anymore."
Yeah, it's great. He says, it's great. I don't have to go up there anymore. I don't have to test this. He says, what got him at first was learning how to do Ohm's law, because it gives you a resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to take that resistance against your voltage and you figure out what it is.
Yeah.
But awesome tool, man. I tell you what, I don't troubleshoot without my meters. If I don't have my meters, I'm lost. I can't. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And like you said, a lot of people aren't aware of it. They'll try to use a multimeter, which isn't going to give you what you need to know. And people aren't familiar with them, but a lot of guys that are integrating with our gear, they're either not audio specialists or their expertise is somewhere else. They have some tools with them, but they don't know where to look, and they don't know what to look for. And from phone calls that we get daily, the number one concern is speaker line issues. And the ZM-104A can test the load on that. And you know right away where to look and then, what to do. But you never want to go in blindfolded and just drop an amp in and just think it's the amp and boom.
No.
And we see that a lot, unfortunately, but that's never the case. So, a tool like the ZM-104A, how easy it is. And Andy just went through a couple steps, a simple scenario we guys gave you when it comes to an amplifier, a 70 volt amp in protect mode. You come to the site, you bust out your ZM-104A. Andy gave you the steps there on how to test. You can know in seconds, right? It probably takes seconds.
Oh, yeah. Well, once you disconnect the speaker leads from the amplifier, and you hook them up on the meter itself and zap it, right away you get a resistance reading right away.
Yeah. So right away, it's time, and time is money. Obviously, is what something like this could do for you. It gives you a starting point, and maybe that, maybe your line load is fine and there's nothing, but now you know that that's fine. All right, let's focus on the amp. Let's figure out what's going on. This way, you know for sure where to begin and where to start. It just saves so much time in so many ways. The list goes on and on. And the ZM-104A, we put out a cheat sheet, Andy. We got that article that's from a third party on how to use it in different ways. It's a tone generator. You could do a bunch of stuff with it. Can you give us another example on how the unit could be used to test for an issue?
All right. So let's say you want to make sure that a line from one side to another, a wire run is correct, that you don't have a break in the wire, which sometimes happens, right? Wire gets snagged, it pinched, they get cut. The meter itself will give you a tone when you have continuity. No continuity, it won't even give you a tone. So that's another good use of it. Obviously, it's not a tone that's loud enough to damage anything, but you can tone out to test for continuity. You can test for attenuators to make sure attenuators are working properly, that they're getting the right resistance as you turn the knobs. I mean, it's just an awesome device, man. It's just some, obviously the general purpose is your own reading. You want to make sure that you're not, damaging an amp. Like you said, the last thing you want to do is, this is the third replacement. What's wrong with your amp? No. How about what's wrong with the install? There's something wrong with the install, not the amp.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's when, like I said, we get a lot of those calls, and that's when the integrators are lost and they're like, well, what can it be? Well, that's when we ask them the question, did you test the load on the line? What are you getting? How many watts is the amp actually pushing out? What's it seeing? What's it seeing on the line? And they don't know.
9 out of 10 times, that's the issue. With an overloaded amp, that's 9 out of 10 times, that's the issue. Either the amp is just, it went bad because it didn't have enough room to breathe and ventilate, so it suffocated and burnt out. Or you got a 4 ohm load on an amp that can only do 20 ohms, and so I mean, this amp is glowing at night. Yeah, it's pulling.
It's glowing at night. Yeah. So, and another thing is, the unit, if you guys ever felt one of these things, it's built very solidly, old school feel to it, like almost like built in America type feel. That old school type feeling. It's got an analog meter on it, a VU, which is really, really cool. It's only changed, I think, twice. We're on the MK2 version. Yeah. This is the ZM-104A. Over maybe, I don't know, my guess is 30 years. Maybe it's changed.
Yeah, and it was just the knobs. I think it's just the knobs, and now it has
the knobs. Yeah, so very little changes. Yeah, and that just speaks for you that we don't have to change anything. It's very reliable. Works on a couple batteries, right, Andy?
Out in the field? Yeah. And the C's or D's?
C's. Okay. Yeah, it comes in a nice little carrying case, but just an overall great tool to have. Not only working with TOA gear, but anything audio related. If you guys are out there in the field and you're working with audio, you need one of these, especially 70-volt systems, and especially large systems that scale, 200, 300, 400 speakers over huge areas.
Warehouse, man. Could you imagine on a warehouse having to go to every driver in a warehouse to see what's
Yeah. And, I've had guys call and say, well, I gotta get up my ladder and check. I go, whoa. Yeah. Do you have an impedance meter?
Yeah. Let's start there and see what save yourself some time.
Yeah. Save yourself some time. Absolutely. So if you guys aren't aware of the ZM-104A, again, we talked about it in a podcast a couple months back, Andy and I, just a brief overview. We just wanted to introduce it to make you guys aware of the product. This was just a quick example of how it can be used out in the field. Super, super easy. Just maybe some quick reference on Ohm's law, but the meter does everything for you essentially. And then it also comes with do we include a chart?
Chart. Yeah. It tells you exactly. So it kind of does the calculation for you.
Yeah. So we have a conversion chart that comes with it. So it's all there, guys. If you have any questions regarding the ZM-104A, reach out to myself, reach out to Andy, tech support. We'll answer any of those questions for you guys. It is available. It's an awesome unit. Solid for integrators, a must-have in your tool bag.
Without a doubt.
All right, guys, that'll do it, Andy. Thanks again, man.
Signing off, man.
As always. Guys, remember, every single Monday evening, new podcast, and second to last week of the month, we have webinars coming out. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.